All right, welcome back. As you've seen from the cards there, Seun Onigbinde, the founder of Budget, joins me here in Abuja, while Kalu is a financial analyst, and he joins me from the United States of America. Welcome to you, Seun.
It's a pleasure being here. Thank
Likewise,
you.
having you.
Yeah, great.
Also, good morning, Kalu, and thank you again for joining me on the show today. I know it's quite early where you are. You should be sleeping right now. Kalu, can you hear me? Can you unmute? I can't hear you. Oh, okay. I
I
hope.
can hear you.
Okay,
I can hear you
I can
pretty
hear you
well.
now. Yes, I was saying good morning and thank you for joining us this early. But I know you are also a nocturnal person, as it were. so, so welcome to the program, guys. We have a lot to discuss, so let's just get in. I will start with you, Seun. Will this election be different?
In terms of the issues,
Yes, in
oh,
terms of, do you think this election will be different since Nigeria became a democracy in 1999? This will be the seventh one that
yeah,
we will be doing. Do you think it will be different?
I think it should be different. We should see improvement in performance from INEC, which is the electoral organizer. I mean, the police officers, every other agencies that is also involved in this. We should see a little bit of difference because you've been doing things over and over every cycle. So there are no surprises that we're going to have election this year. There is no surprise that we're going to have election 2027. So adequate preparation, adequate logistics should have gone into there. Also, the political actors, I think the desperation will still be there because I think we've had PDP lead the country for a while. APC has also tasted what it means to be in power for 8 years. Nobody wants to lose that kind of opportunity easily. So there will be a keen contest. I say very keen contest, and I pray that security agencies, politicians, and everyone is key stakeholder in the election process behave themselves if the purpose is actually to serve Nigerians.
Okay, Carlo, over to you. Do you think that this 2023 elections will be an economic election? Nigerians are facing currency depreciation, inflation, inequality, poverty, so many things, insecurity. So do you think that this will be an economic election like we see in the United States of America where you are? It was in 1992 that James Carville, an advisor of Bill Clinton then, did say is the economy is stupid. Do you think it is now time in Nigeria for the economy to be stupid?
Yeah, I think so, Nancy. And if you just look at the narration on social media for this election, it's all about policies, manifestos, plans, programs. It's no longer about people eating corn or going to the bargain salon. Nigerians seem to be more interested now with facts and figures. What are you going to do? You know, we're hearing slogans now, consumption, expenditure. So the population has, I believe, woken up. There's now a more of a realization that whoever you elect as CEO does have a meaning to the size of your wallet. And to answer your question directly, yes, it's all about the economy. Today, Nigerians are lining up to buy fuel. That's an economic issue. That's money from their pocket. So who you're going to elect in February is going to change. If you're going to keep buying fuel by 10 p.m., or if you're going to be at home with your family enjoying a pension by 10 p.m.
Okay, let's dig deeper into the manifestos because earlier during my intro, I did ask Nigerians if they've really read the manifesto or they've seen at least the summary of the manifestos. Let's start with Tinubu's APC, his manifesto, and I think it's tagged Renewed Hope, if I'm not mistaken. Seun, when you go through this document, in fact, if my producers, my team can actually put that on the screen, we actually summarized some of the things in the manifesto. Tinubu says he will launch public works program, infrastructure investment, build a well-diversified economy, a GDP growth of 12% annually for the next 4 years if he's elected. From now, so that means if elected, Tinubu is promising us that the economy will grow at 12%. This is an economy that is still hanging on a balance of about 2.25% the last quarter. What do you think? How achievable is that?
I mean, it looks not feasible. I mean, there are structural challenges with the Nigerian economy. Why would it not grow? Even if you want to grow the economy at 12% and you put all the money in, you have the human capital, the productivity levels to make that happen. And I think it also means that we've not properly dimensioned the Nigerian economy for what it is for you to make this kind of conversation. 25% or close to 25% of that economy is agriculture, you know, and around 12% is manufacturing. You know, then you have trade, something around 20% again. So, and you have services. If you want, so how do you want to move agriculture? Because if you don't move agriculture significantly, you can't grow the economy. So how do you want to move agriculture by 12%? I mean, what investments are you going to do?
Do you think that it's just only about agriculture, that if you can move, from your analysis now, if you can move agriculture further than where it is right now, the economy will grow 12%? Seun will have it in mind that the larger economy, about 52%, is dominated by services.
Yeah. So even if you, because if you want to say you want to grow the economy, it's not just, because if you say, if you're building a service-oriented economy, that's a different conversation. But that's also not easy, because services are serving a class of things. So agriculture is plugged to that services. Oil and gas is plugged to that services. It's like you say banking is part of services, but if your banking industry is solid, if it's strong, it's just because there is an agri, there's an oil and gas, there's a trade, there's everything that is connected to the services. So I think when it comes to us that we think we can really, because look at China for all its glorious growth. I mean, it was doing 8-9% consistently over a long period of time. So it's say 10, 12, the kind of investment you need. Number one, you can't, in 4 years, number one, this kind of significant foreign direct investment you need to bring in. That is huge. Then you also have to now look at the kind of productivity level and human capital investment you need to put in play. That will not generate overnight. Then you also now even have to look at the policies, the solutions, the ideas, the things that you need to put there. You can ease business. Those are things that will not happen overnight. So, you know, I even read articles myself too. There were conversations around doubling our GDP per capita.
We'll come to articles on the PDP one. We're still talking about APC. And Kalu, let me come over to you, dovetailing from what Seun has said, which I also mentioned earlier, that Tinubu is promising Nigeria a growth rate of 12% yearly from now till the next 4 years if elected. And he did also promise a 7% growth rate for agriculture, that he will triple education spending from 8% to 25%. How visible is this? If we're talking about economic growth, China is a visible example of a country that has grown over the last, perhaps over the last 60 years or so, by double digits. Is it over the last 1960? From over the double digit until lately that it is just growing by a single digit. So how can Tinubu perform this magic if elected from now till 2027?
If you want to know what Tinubu wants to do, he's trying to copy, I think, what Roosevelt did in the US after the great crash in 29, which was full employment, massive spending, government takeover of the economy, and just employ everyone and try to jumpstart the economy by spending money. We've already seen him say they're going to decouple the budget from the benchmark, which means they're going to just print, borrow a lot of naira, employ a lot of people, and hope that this creates employment and that economic growth. The problem is that in America, it didn't work. Roosevelt spent trillions. They employed everyone. But America really didn't get out of the recession. It was the Second World War that took America really out of that depression. So in Nigeria's case, we don't even control our currency. Our naira is a derivative of crude oil and all. So I wonder how we're going to expand the economy without driving up inflation and without driving away foreign capital. This is my fear. The structure has to come first before the growth. And in Tinubu's plan, he's talking about massive expansion in monetary capital in Nigeria. But the structure of fuel subsidies, of spendings, I'm not sure he has really addressed that adequately. Will he remove subsidy of PMS? He says yes. When? If he removes it, how does it compensate for that removal of subsidy? These are the structural questions that needs to happen before we see any 8-12% growth. It's not going to happen if those structures do remain.
Okay, Kalu, let me still remain with you on this Tinubu issue. Does that mean that these candidates just churn out manifestos for us to just be satisfied that there is a manifesto? Because at least I've gone through the 4 frontliners, their manifestos, and we'll be coming to that. We're still on Tinubu zone, privatization of NNPC, creation of 6 regional economic development agencies or hubs. I don't know if you saw that also in his manifesto. How are these now realizable, or they are just taking perhaps, let's just do it? Do you think that they were even so involved in the creation of their documents? Or Seun, you guys know that you can get anyone to write something nice for you. Just gather a team of professors or economists.
Nancy, great question, Nancy. The way it works is that you have a vision. You see, Obama had that vision, right? Then you have the economic plan and manifesto. What we're seeing really is people are bringing out manifestos in response to a candidate that says, I want to deal with facts and figures. The ideology comes first. And what Tinubu is saying to Nigerians, we were not getting that, is going to tilt us towards a socialist bend. The government is going to have a larger say in the allocation of capital because they're going to spend a lot of money. They're going to crowd out private capital. They're going to borrow and print and try to motivate or to push the economy towards growth. He wants to spend to get growth. It's been done before and it has worked. The problem still has to remain, Nigeria currently today is broke. Where are you going to get money to print and spend? You have to basically go back to the same CBN or to pass a national assembly to give you money to spend. So the ideology of Tinubu is what we're not talking about yet. That ideology might not work in an economy that is broke and does not have control over its monetary policy. America can print dollars because everyone can buy a dollar. But can Nigeria print tons of naira? What happens? So yes, they do read their manifestos, but I think they are presenting the manifestos at the middle and not really explaining or linking the ideology to the methodology to the economic plan.
Okay, Seun, let's come to Atiku's manifesto. My covenant.
And I want to make a small point on that. Because ideology is critical, like you said, and that coherence of the ideology. Because I listened recently, he was talking about the NESG engagement, that he wants to be big on fiscal policy, which means taxes will also be big on the table, which means the government, the Ministry of Finance will dictate, and definitely we can't run away from the CBN. A big part of decoupling revenue from spending is my biggest problem in that manifesto, because it doesn't look at preservation of private capital, it doesn't look at issues of inflation, as is mentioned. And I think there's also a point on consumer credit. He made a very huge point about he wants to expand consumer credit. All of this means that there will be a lot of money in the circulation. It means that it's going to be each 10. There might be growth, but it will not at pace with the significant funds that have been pumped in the economy.
Now the question is, which Kalu also mentioned earlier, is that if Tinubu is promising so much money in the economy, where will that money come out? This is a country now that is embedded in a debt. You know, about if, when elected, whosoever is elected, if the CBN Ways and Means are securitized, Nigeria will be hanging on a debt of 77 trillion naira. Yeah. That is huge.
Yeah, and we'll have a debt servicing figure.
Borrowing to pay salaries, borrowing for almost everything. So where will Tinubu, if elected, get this money, which Kalu also mentioned earlier? So it's going to go back to printing of money or go to the National Assembly?
I mean, let's see what he would do on taxes. That will be different. That's number one for me. Number two, they will be going back to CBN. There is no way out from it. Because debt servicing figures projected to reach 10 trillion naira by 2025. Because of the principals that we paid down, because of Eurobond payments that are due and all that, and now CBN's Ways and Means will give an additional 2 trillion naira debt servicing payment annually. So by the time you put all of that together, then I'm beginning to ask, where's the fiscal space for all of the ideas and this one that we want to spend? Because it says something at the NESG. It said we want to spend in the economy to reach 10% GDP growth. And that gets me a bit worried.
Okay. Atiku's manifesto still with you. My covenants with Nigerians restore Nigeria to pre-2015 level. I was reading an article by from the BBC, and the way they described Atiku, the man who wants Nigeria to look back to to go forward. And when I saw in his manifesto, restore Nigeria to pre-2015 level, you've seen from the campaigns of the PDP, oh, in 2015, or when the PDP was in power, inflation was this, Nigeria wasn't as bad as this, we need to go back. And Atiku has campaigned on it. How realistic do you think that the Nigeria of 2015 or pre-2015 is the Nigeria of today that Atiku's manifesto will work?
It's a different Nigeria. More Nigerians are poor. You know, it's a different Nigeria. Debt servicing, we were still hanging around less than a trillion. Now we're close to like 6 trillion. Definitely, inflation is, so these are things that it takes a while. But structurally, you have to decouple a whole lot of things. He has a good idea of the fact that he wants to be private sector focused, private sector driven. He wants to be a pro-business person. And I think anybody that wants to really move things differently has to posture like that we need to focus on the private sector is the engine of growth and putting a form of lean government in play. Now, the challenge is I see that the promises are also huge. Maybe some of them are not feasible. I mean, there's a part of manifesto that says it wants to move manufacturing's contribution to GDP to 30%, or the fact that it wants to move GDP per capita from $2,000 per person to now 5,000. Those are things that one looks like, oh, these are difficult things to achieve. But for me, I feel that
is it difficult things to achieve within the time frame of a 4-year tenure if elected?
Yeah, because if you want to move GDP per capita from 2,000 to 5,000, you need to grow at 13% for the next 7 years.
A lot of jobs will be there to be able to drive that.
But one of the things I like about his manifesto is that I think of the 3 manifestos, if I'm allowed to say that, is that it's one that had a more clear part about job creation, to say this is how I want to create jobs currently. And I think it's focused heavily on the SME. But some of the things that you also said are grossly not feasible. For example, some of the things are also incoherent. For example, you want to do 70,000 kilometers of road. The entire federal government road network is 32,000. So if you want to run a lean government, why are you trying to construct more roads than the entire road stock of the federal government? You want to also employ 1 million people in the police. You want to decentralize, and at the same time, you still want to employ more people. So I still see some lack of incoherence. It's also big on devolution of power and restructuring and things like that. But when you look at it in terms of SME investment, job creation, he's also been talking about a $10 billion
$10 billion, I was coming
fund.
To that, yes,
for small businesses. Yes. So I feel like that's around 4.3 trillion naira. That's a huge investment that is putting himself.
Where will he get that money from?
And I think that's what people have not done well in this manifesto. Where will the money come from? Because if you look at the federal government, it's squeezed on all sides. And if, FIRS declared 10 trillion naira taxes, and the federal government does not even take significant amount from VAT, so you take 2.5 trillion from that. Then out of the 7.5, the federal government takes around 52%. So you're technically dealing with around 3.5 trillion from FIRS. Federal government revenue is no more than 5.5 trillion naira. We are servicing debt close to that amount already.
I have
a budget of 21 trillion. We are not, our budget, our fiscal structure doesn't make sense in any jurisdiction.
Okay. Let me ask Kalu, what do you think about Atiku's manifesto? I don't know, I guess you would have heard what Seun has said. Do you have anything more to say, perhaps around what Atiku mentioned, around breaking government monopoly in refineries? He's huge on that. Power transmission and rail transportation. What else? Fights institutional corruption. How feasible is that? Because a lot of people are also pointing the fingers at him that how can you say you want to fight institutional corruption when perhaps even the pre-2015, during the PDP days, PDP was, tagged as a party that's well known for corruption, which President Buhari did come in 2015 to say one of his anchors is that I'm going to eliminate corruption. So how do you tie all of this into Atiku's manifesto of saying, I want to build a prosperous economy, and what will that prosperous economy look like?
Yeah, I think Atiku's manifesto is perfect. The problem is that it's 4 years late. It looks like they dusted up the 4-year manifesto to present in 2022 because it doesn't address the challenges today. The refinery issues was a 4-year issue. Now we have NNPC Limited. That has taken over by events. Education, all the stuff he wants to do. We've moved on from those problems. We now have new problems. how will we fix ASU, how we create jobs, how we're going to talk about the digital economy, about cryptocurrency, Nollywood, all those things. I don't see a lot of introspection, deep linkages between his plan, his manifesto, his ideology, and what he wants to do. Give an example, his issue on university funding. He went from, I'm going to give university to the state governments, to back to, oh, we're going to give it to the private sector to fund. That's a big decision. Will the state have it? If the states have it, that's restructuring. That's more tax revenues going to the state. If the private sector has it, that's going to be a different kettle of fish entirely. How they're going to do the taxing with the FIRS. But they seem not to really understand what he wants to do with those old problems. So nothing new in the manifesto. It's well written. If it was a manifesto 10 years ago, it would be perfect. But for now, today, I think it's a bit late in addressing the issues we have today.
That was why I actually asked Seun earlier, that if this manifesto of Atiku will really work for a Nigeria of today. And I like that you brought in that point. And perhaps for the writers of his manifesto or whatsoever, there's an NNPC Limited right now, which is like a commercial entity. Perhaps
but that's
a
also
government
debatable.
Commercial, yes, it's also debatable.
It's also debatable because, and I'm not trying to, agree with this point, because until we divest, until the government chooses to divest NNPC shares, that's when, because NNPC looks like it's the same wine, same skin, same bottle. We have to figure out a way to really run NNPC as a full private sector venture.
Okay.
If at the end of the day it's still 100% owned by government and decisions still circulate between the minister and the president, I mean, I still don't think that we've moved a bit forward, but not just enough. Yeah.
Okay, Kalu, if we still talk about Atiku's manifesto as it is right now, for Atiku saying that he will restore Nigeria's fractured unity, guarantee safety and securities of lives and property, do you think perhaps Atiku and Tinubu, which we mentioned, whom we mentioned earlier, that they are heavy on insecurity when you look at those two manifestos? I'll come back to the later two, Peter Obi and Kwakwanso.
Yeah, I think it's, what else will they say? I mean, any president by default has got to fix insecurity. It's not to say, it is how are you going to do it? And it's going to only be fixed through the economy. It is jobs that will fix the insecurity in Nigeria. You take away the hardcore criminals, away from the guys that are doing crime because there are no jobs. Then the army and the police can face those hardcore criminals and terrorists and deal with them. So you get the linkage of there's insecurity and we have a bad economy. Okay. How can I use the economy to fix insecurity? It's absent from both manifestos that you talked about. It's a given. The US, Philippines, Nigeria, the number one job for you, apart from collecting taxes, is to fight insecurity. Now it's a campaign probably because in Nigeria you have bandits and terrorists taking over large swaths of farm areas, causing inflation to go up. So it's an economic issue. It's not an insecurity alone issue. And I'm not seeing the linkages with that. I want to see how it will be done. How would you fix the rice bells? How would you make the bandits go away and go back to farm? How would you do it? That's what we want to see the details. I don't want to talk. They still want to employ more guys into the army. That might not solve the problem. So what's the economic answer? It's missing. And that's my problem with that.
Yes, taking a look at the socio-economic solution to the insecurity question which we are facing now. Seun, I'm coming back to you. Let's just suppose Atiku's manifesto with a Tinubu manifesto. And why I'm just opposing it now is between an APC government, which is currently on, and a PDP government, which we had pre-2015 till 2015. If you take a look at Tinubu's manifesto, Tinubu is also campaigning on the fact that, this present administration has done so well that I'm going to continue even President Buhari's legacy and all of that. But you know that what Nigerians have experienced, the data says it all. I don't need to start rehashing the data. Back to Atiku. 2015, President Jonathan was there as the president, PDP too. Do you think that Nigerians have forgotten the why they voted out a PDP government in 2015 to get result? And do you think they've gotten the results from an APC government, that they will re-elect an APC government according to Tinubu's manifesto, or they will say a PDP government was better? The devil we know is better than the angel that we thought we were going to, receive. An angel of God that brought the good news to Mary and Elizabeth in the Bible. So you understand what I mean?
I think we will know very soon. I mean, because like Kalu said, this economy will be a big conversation here. And it's not easier, because we have fuel subsidy right now, inflation, poverty. So the reaction of Nigerians to how the APC, and I think the environment has not been too helpful to the APC government. We had, even though they started very slow, which I think had a significant impact on how they moved. But if you look at the fact that we had the Russia-Ukraine war, we've had even the pandemic in itself, it's not helped a bit. But they also were not proactive on certain issues. And now that we even had the record high oil prices, we could not even drill the oil. So I feel that Nigerians would have to react to that. Do we want to go back and see what does it look like to PDP? Because it's good in a democracy that if you're not satisfied with the status quo, you say, where is your alternative? Because it sends a message in the whole system to say, if you don't perform, we would get you out. And that could even help internal criticisms within party. When people understand that if the president is messing up on certain things, maybe like closure of the border in Benin Republic, people within the party can anchor it on him and say, yes, this is not a right policy. Because we might lose political power. But I think at the end of the day, because election there are also emotive choices. People look at tribe, people look at identity,
religion,
people look at self-preservation. A whole lot of things come into play. And I think by the time we put all the matrix together, we'll know where the finally keep their
I hope we'll have more time today so that we'll look at, with all those metrics which we're talking about, perhaps where Nigerians will be tilting to with what we have on ground as data.
Exactly.
But let me move over to Kalu, and let's come back. Let's go over now to Peter Obi's manifesto, which he titled "Is Possible Our Pact with Nigerians." What do you think about Peter Obi's manifesto? 62 pages. We can take a few. Leapfrog Nigeria into the fourth industrial revolution. He's talked so much about consumption to production. In fact, the BBC article that I read, let me also mention how they described Peter Obi, the frugal businessman capturing young Nigerians' hearts. That was how the BBC in an article did describe him, the frugal businessman capturing young Nigerians' hearts. So, Kalu, what do you think? Reduce debt to revenue ratio by implementing radical economic policies. I don't think he mentioned anything about double-digit growth. I may be wrong, but I did not see that there. So, Kalu, over to you.
I think with his manifesto, it's a lot of new ideas, lots of very, very new ideas. Number one, the hourly pay. That to me it's a game changer to say we're going to now pay. It's not just to pay you by the hour. It changes the wage structure and the mobility of labor, especially for a country that has lots of young people doing a lot of gig economy type, say IT. That's a game changer for them. Hourly wage is there. When he talks about consumption to production, I felt he did not do a good job in explaining what that means. That's also a wonderful idea to say we're going to take the funds of the government away from funding importation of consumption, or rather investing in education. He wants to link fiber optics to all state capitals and to all state universities. So universities now become centers of not just education, but of SME job creation. You're in university, you start a business in university, you can then go out and start a job, start a company, just once you graduate. He didn't really do a good job in linking that, but I felt in terms of the manifesto in general, lots of fresh ideas, lots of people and youth ideas, lots of ways to stop wastage is also in that manifesto. Talking about how we're going to link universities to the tax revenues of the private sector. So what that means is that I could go to my alma mater, give them money, and then get a tax credit. That's wonderful. That's how it's done everywhere in the world. You take the wealth of the nation and you allocate it, not just the government, but the private sector also investing in education. So I like the direction of the manifesto. I think it's very refreshing. It's totally brand new. And like I said, the only part I didn't like was not linking and explaining what consumption to manufacturing. List it out so folks understand exactly what this means. They've done it subsequently, but it wasn't done so well in that manifesto.
Now, the other part, which I want to take you up on, is what he mentioned, talking about the payment of hourly wages. Did you derive satisfaction from how this will be done? Bearing in mind that Nigeria is a country that operates on a monthly salary scale. If you want to do this, how do you measure productivity? Productivity to labor. You know, in the US where you are, of course they do that. Hourly wages, someone is earning like, I think $15 an hour, that's like the average now, or 25, you know. So how do you measure that? How do you begin to tell companies that, okay, it's not going to be a monthly salary now, you're going to be paying your workers by the hour?
It doesn't change how you pay. You can still pay monthly. I think that's the misconception. You can still pay monthly or quarterly or weekly if you want to. The point is this, right? You can have multiple employers. What that means is this: you pay me for the time I work for you. If I work in quote unquote X bank and I work 9 to 5 with X bank, I get paid 9 to 5 with X bank. I can go to B bank and work 4 to 7 and get paid 4 to 7. So I have two incomes. Nigeria gets two incomes to tax, but I am one person. I could work full time, I could work part time, I could work part time and also go to school. So it doesn't change per se how you get paid. What it changes is how your pay or how your productivity is calculated. Right now, the companies will pay you for 30 days, point blank. You work for a month, you get paid for a month. Now they will pay you based on the hours that you pick up. So if you're full time and you work 9 to 5 in Nigeria, you get paid 40 hours a week. That's all you want to do. But now with hourly pay, you can work for a bank 9 to 5, then you can work for say 2 hours, do IT. It's your call. So that's more productivity. That's we're getting more man hours per person. The government gets more tax revenues per person. It's the same labor workforce, but then you don't remove this casual labor thing, right? Because there's no more going to be casual labor. It's instead going to be workers that are working at less hours. So if you work for, say, a fast food company, instead of you being a casual worker, you're just not a full-time employee. So you can do more gig jobs and get paid per hour. So it's easier to do minimum wage. You can say Kano would pay this minimum wage, Edo would pay this minimum wage based on the state. In America, it's a federal recommended minimum wage of 7.45. 15 is what most states pay now because of inflation, but it's still a federal recommendation. So same thing in Nigeria, devolve the wage structure. Lagos should pay more because I have a higher cost of living, but Yobe shouldn't pay as much as Lagos. So this is why I say it's a game changer, because now you now have more folks can get a job, because those companies will then open up more slots for hourly, for casual, not for casual now, but for part-time work, which you can do. You can go to school and then work for a company for 4 hours and you have benefits. It's not casualization. So I love that.
Okay. Seun, do you have any other thing to say concerning P2B's manifesto before we go to Kwakwanso? Because I'm looking at my time.
It's a good manifesto. A few things. Number one, I didn't like the fact that there was not enough quantifiable commitment. He didn't put enough numbers in his manifesto. So it's hard, because he hears things around.
But he's one man that reads out numbers.
Yeah, it's a one man that reads out numbers.
During his campaigns
so I was
rallies.
So worried about why can't he say
those numbers were not there.
The numbers were not in that manifesto compared to what you gave to other candidates. A little bit of incoherence on putting personnel costs, codifying minimum wage with insecurity. So I guess maybe that's an arrangement issue. I like his manifesto to some extent. The fact that it fits his brand. It was big on the fact that we need to move from production to consumption to production. I feel we need consumption and production in my own view. But I understand what he meant, that we need to be an economy that produces heavily and produce for export specifically. So I think he addressed that significantly well. He went to the hard issues. He spoke about our story report. He had a stand. He spoke about the first subsidy.
He spoke about the Siemens.
He spoke about the Siemens
agreement that he would.
He understand.
He also spoke about the National Commission Act that he would sign it into law.
Yep.
If elected, that was done since 2018.
So I like the fact that he took the hard issues and it was clear. A lot of the other candidates were not too clear.
Okay.
Then finally, my point would be cost of governance. I also feel he was the only one that took a section out to fully address the issue of cost of governance.
Let's come to Kwakwanso. I looked at Kwakwanso manifesto, and one thing that really came to me that was so glaring is that I didn't see anything around fuel subsidy. In Kwakwanso's document. What I actually did so was like coal mining, stuff. I was like, are you sure I'm reading the right manifesto? In case the NNPP is listening to me, please send me the book. Send me your book, about the manifesto. So the question which, you can see right there on the screen, is Kwakwanso's manifesto, is it robust enough? Because even when I talked about fuel subsidy, I said, how will you carry out that task without, he didn't even mention it. So that means if elected, will the country still be bleeding? What do you think before I go to Kalu?
I think this side of the economy was not coherent enough, and he didn't really contextualize the issues well. He had I think his manifesto is a book, is a huge one. He went on he theorized things very, very well. But in some sort of way, you also need to say, what are the key biters? What are the key points that would shift the system? What do you want to anchor your reform agenda on? We can say article pro-business restructuring. We can say Tinubu wants to be a big spender. We also know that he has huge plans for agriculture based on what he wrote in his manifesto, and also industrialization, and also regional coordination. We can say it will be production to consumption, and also cost of governance, and also security. But I'm still struggling to look into that manifesto. What exactly is your central message? And even seeing and building that central message, as a key tenet in his entire media exposures. His brand fit everyday on human capital development. A lot of people had emphasized what he did with that in Kano. And I think that's where I wanted to see much more strength, But like I said, I've read the manifesto. It looks very bulky. It said a whole lot of things, but I'm just asking, what exactly are your key outcomes?
It was not really exact.
Yeah, exact.
Was that the sense?
Yeah, that's the feeling now. Exact about what do I draw out from this, so that I can know I can hold you accountable.
Okay, Kalu, what do you have to say about Kwakwanso's manifesto? Very quickly, because I'm looking at our time. We have to go like in the next 5 or 7 minutes. Kalu, I can't hear you. Unmute your system. I can hear you now.
It's very, very light. Very, very light manifesto. I didn't really see much on the economy. Take the Naira, for instance. He wants to strengthen, he wants to stabilize, he wants to value the Naira, all at the same time. All these three things have different ways to get it done and have different implementation techniques, but he wants to do all at the same time in one document. So very, very light, just one pager for the economy, not good enough.
Did you also capture that there were no fuel subsidy talks in that manifesto? Because I was looking for it and I did not see it. So I thought, Nancy, are you sure you're reading the right manifesto?
Yeah, I mean, he talks about transportation and objectives and all that. It feels like a very, very tactical document. This is what I will do, steps, like key action points, but not really in terms of overall strategy, right? I'm seeing kerosene and solar panel, rural electrification here, things like that. That's what it's talking about, harnessing energy resources, stuff like that, the bullet points,
exactly.
But not really taking it home for Nigerians here.
Okay, Kalu, still sticking with you, do you think that Nigerians will be heading to the polls with a sense of the house, of how the candidates have, presented themselves to us? They've been speaking across states in Nigeria, rallies. Do you think that Nigerians, about 30-something days now to the elections, that perhaps we are satisfied with the house from these candidates?
I think, in all honesty, the only candidate that has managed to communicate a mantra has been Peter Obi, that production to consumption. Okay, people know it. If you say Peter Obi, they will tell you about that. Article, not really. There is no buzzword or tagline that you can say
Kalu, how about the $10 billion he's promising small businesses? For an article, for example, he's been going around the state saying, I'm going to get out a $10 billion for small businesses. What I'm questioning is, where are you getting the money?
Obama said hope and change. You could remember that. You could remember that hope. You know, Trump, make America great again. The tagline at the closing stages is what's missing. You know, Peter Obi seems to have a tagline locked. Atiku doesn't really have a tagline locked. Bola Tinubu's campaign, his plan is the most extensive, but he's not explaining it. And I think it's on purpose. People don't understand what he wants to do, but he's saying what he wants to do, but they're not explaining it. So that when they do it, they will say, we told you. It's going to be a radical shift from what Nigerians are used to. So pay attention to what Tinubu is saying. Pay good attention to what he wants to do.
Okay. In all of this that we've said, do these manifestos matter? You know, we've been talking about this now for the last close to 50 minutes now. So yes, because the show started at 11. Do you think that these really matter? Why should we be doing this right now? Is the award going to be their bond?
It matters because for public record, we need to know what you're thinking. And I think if you look at, for example, Tinubu, talking about inflating the economy, spending in a huge way, this is not new ideas. And if you read some op-eds that he wrote in 2014, he's been emphatic about this point. During coronavirus crisis, he was emphatic about this point that we need to spend our way to growth. So in my own view, and if an article would say, if you read his manifesto, like we said, it's 4 years late, he's been pro-business in some sort of way. So I feel it may make you understand a little bit about when the party comes into power, what would it look like. I'm not a person. I believe that you don't vote in individuals, you vote in systems. There's an ideology, there's a clear thinking.
No, but don't you think that is changing now? The Nigerians are going for individuals now, not about party.
Yeah.
A Nigerian can say, I've heard people tell me I will vote APC in this one, but in social position, I'll vote a PDP or a Labour Party.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that Tinubu as a brand, or B or Atiku as a brand, the kind of system that they put around themselves, there's a kind of belief, there's a kind of ideology. And that is what you're going to see when you get in. And I think you could look back into their track record about the things that they have said. If you're looking for a very frugal government, you know who is going to likely be. If you're looking for a pro-business guy, if you're looking for maybe someone who can anchor a big vision, for example, Lekki Port is being commissioned
today.
Now, that vision started close to years ago, by his own government. So you might have to sit back and weigh all the options. And I feel this is important for those who want build intellectual arguments to this. But I think for a significant amount of Nigerians, they will focus on the very basic issue, the economy. Okay. Is it helpful for me? And who else can change my fortunes?
Okay, lastly, Kalu, the viability of these parties, bearing in mind that pre-2015, only 2 parties perhaps dominated. Or no, only the PDP actually dominated until 2015 that the APC came to the strop. I guess that even before 2015, PDP would have been going to sleep, having in mind that we're going to win these elections. Do you see this changing with the swingers coming in, the swingers such as the Labour Party and the NMPP disrupting the PDP, which is a big party, and the APC, which also prides itself as a big party after the coalition? Very quickly, we have to go, Kalu.
Yeah, I think Labour has done a very, very good job in presenting an option. That's what they've done. There's an option out there, and it's a real option. They were laughed at, I think, 3 months ago. Now it's a real option, and it's basically a real. So it's going to be. If you ask me my personal view, it's going to be a split ticket. Split ticket. People are going to vote presidential one way, state one way, House Assembly one way, and all that. It's going to be a split ticket, and I'll be very, very surprised. People will be surprised with the result in February. I think right now we have an option on the cards, and there might be, should we say, an upset. The youths are going to be the main drivers of the vote in February. The youth. So whatever the youth feel like, 2 weeks to the elections is what's going to happen. The youth of Nigeria, whatever they feel, how they think their country is going to be in the next 4 years is how they're going to vote, and you might see an upset. Just might. It's happened in Zambia. It might happen here.
Okay. There are more questions from you guys, actually, from the answers which you've given me this morning. But of course, we're going to be doing this again, because if we say that the youths are also going to be the deciders, bear it in mind that among these youths, perhaps 15 to 34, then 35 to 49, which comprise about 75%. You will still see some categories of people that will vote for the APC, the PDP, the Labour Party, the NNPP among those 75%. So perhaps that's what we're going to be dissecting later on the show. But I want to say many thanks to both of you for coming. The CBN's monetary policy is ongoing. There will be an announcement, I think, within the next hour. So we really need to get out of here to know what the monetary policy is saying. So thank you very much, Kalu, for joining us. You will join us again soon. We are gradually approaching the elections, and we've got to keep talking about this. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nancy. So a pleasure. Thank you. So
thank
great,
you, Seun.
great
I've been speaking.
Thank you, Nancy. Thanks, Seun.
I've been speaking with Seun Onigbinde, who is the founder Budget, as well as Kalu Aja, a financial and economic analyst. I hope you've been able to understand what these manifestos are, so you don't go into the polls blindly or you are biased with your own sentiments. So we've got to choose wisely when you are voting your candidates. I'll see you all again tomorrow. Be the best you can be and be the change that you want to see. I am Nancy Naji, signing out.